Hello and welcome to what was originally supposed to be another episode of the Liberty Minute, where I cover the major news headlines faster than it takes CNN to retract fake news. Unfortunately, there's just too much crazy happening in the world right now, so we have a full-length video instead. I know, you're complaining. The shit is hitting the fan, my friends, so much that it's actually more like half a dozen silver platters of crap poised in front of maybe a few industrial-strength fans.
Are you laughing? This is terrible news!
Anyways, I'm not saying that to scare you, I'm saying it to warn you so you can be alert and be prepared in whatever way is appropriate for you and your family. This isn't speculation, this isn't rumors and gossip, this is the bare-bone facts of what has been happening in the world this week. Before we get into the details, today's episode is brought to you with the help of My Patriot Supply, America's leading preparedness company. By the time I get through today's video, you will know exactly why they're in this one. Right now, viewers can save $50 on a 4-week emergency food kit or snag the company's new 3-month emergency food supply, all at preparewithliberty.com. Right now, I'm replenishing my prepping supplies that got diminished during COVID, and honestly, you should too. Okay, first, let's start with the pipeline. Last Friday, Colonial Pipeline, the biggest oil pipeline in the US, was hit with a cyber attack by hackers who demanded a ransom and thus was shut down. This 5,500-mile pipeline typically carries more than 100 million gallons of fuel from Texas to New Jersey every single day, which is about 45% of the fuel consumed on the East Coast. It also carries jet fuel, which has led airlines to start carrying extra fuel in case there isn't any at their destinations. The attack is overall the most significant and successful attack on U.S. infrastructure to date, and there's conflicting reports on whether or not the pipeline actually paid the ransom, but that's a separate issue. As a result, states all along the pipeline, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, for example, are seeing huge jumps in gas prices while gas stations are completely running dry. The White House has been maintaining that there aren't any supply issues and that everything is fine, despite several states declaring states of emergencies. Government officials blame these shortages on panic buying, but the fact of the matter is, gas and oil are pretty vital parts of our infrastructure, and even if panic buying is causing the supply issue, that still means there's a supply issue if gas stations don't have gas. In response, the Department of Transportation has declared its own state of emergency across 17 states. The White House has temporarily waived a law that requires ships delivering products between U.S. ports to be built and manned by Americans, as well as relaxed some of the rules around using railroads to deliver fuel. In Georgia, the governor temporarily suspended its 30-cent per gallon gas tax to try to combat rising fuel costs, and a few states are now putting laws in place around price gouging. Gas hit a 6-year high of $3 a gallon throughout the week, and on Thursday hit a whopping $7 per gallon in Virginia. 7. People are calling the rising costs price gouging, but really, in most cases, it's the basic economics of supply and demand, and if anything is going to lessen the effects of panic buying, it's appropriately rising costs. Unfortunately, those rising costs are also leading people to get into literal fist fights at the pump, but hey, at least we don't have mean tweets.
That is really what's important.
We personally filled up on Friday just in case and couldn't find any gas at all to top off on Tuesday. We tried several gas stations, and while the lines weren't too crazy in our area, stations were still either already dry or dried up as we got there. I know a few friends of mine in Florida who hadn't known about the pipeline were completely unable to find any gas whatsoever on Monday, and thus basically had to stay home for the week. And another person I know had to delay her move across the country to ensure she didn't just get stranded somewhere without gas. This is what people do when shit goes down, and frankly, it's not inherently good or bad, it's biological, and is exactly why it's a good idea to be prepared sooner rather than later. Colonial system is now mostly back online as of today, but experts are saying that shortages will remain until around Memorial Day, and the longer this goes, the worse the panic is going to get. Of course, Biden's Department of Energy secretary told reporters on Tuesday that none of this would ever have happened if everyone just drove electric cars, and used the crisis to tout Biden's Green New Deal goals.
Impeccable timing, Your Majesty.
The New York Times, meanwhile, claimed that all of this was just a figment of our collective imaginations, stating that gas prices hadn't changed at all and that not a single place in the country had lines for gas. Yeah, okay.
Semi-legitimate journalism.
Now, this mad scramble to get gas stations refueled and bring other forms of fuel wherever it needs to go is also coinciding with a shortage of truck drivers. It also doesn't help that CNN predicted summertime gas shortages just last week, fueling conspiracies, no pun intended. But no, they didn't predict the pipeline hack, but the article did talk about the number of tanker trucks being down 20 to 25% because of a lack of qualified drivers due to truckers leaving the industry in droves during COVID. When the country was shut down, there simply wasn't enough work, and they left to do other things. Now, demand for gas is back up to about where it was pre-pandemic, but the trucking workforce is not. Meanwhile, Gretchen Whitmer is going full Tropic Thunder, if you know what I mean, and has ordered a Canadian energy company to shut down a pipeline that runs through Michigan's waterways. The company argues that the pipeline is safe and that the company has been working to further improve its safety, and that it's never even leaked, but Whitmer calls the pipeline a ticking time bomb that violates public trust and threatens Michigan's environment. Again, while 17 states are in a federal state of emergency over a gas shortage. Now, on top of all of that, we have Biden's abysmal job report that we talked about during the live stream last week. Short version is the numbers fell very, very short of what Biden's team predicted, and while unemployment is up, there is somehow also a shortage of workers. Biden says that it is absolutely not at all because of the extra $300 federal unemployment payments, and told the nation that law mandates that you look for work and accept any work offered to you while on unemployment. That is, in fact, not true. You're not forced to accept work, and most of the unemployment requirements were waived during COVID, so as usual, the man has no idea what he's talking about. Add to this perfect little storm that's brewing the Consumer Price Index report that showed that consumer prices jumped 4.2% annually in April, which is the largest increase since 2008's recession. That number is bigger than the predictions too, and is having all kinds of effects across the economy. Several restaurants here, for example, have temporarily shut down due to the combination of higher food costs and staff shortages, and a couple of our local favorites have already raised prices, halved portion sizes, and I do mean cut them in half. And in one case, got rid of daily discount deals that, unfortunately for them, is what brought in a lot of their business. And a real tragedy, Chick-fil-A is facing a sauce shortage. And this is in South Carolina, a state that didn't do a full shutdown and is faring a lot better economically than our northern blue neighbors. We also got new producer price index numbers this week, which rose 6.2% in a year, which is the biggest jump since the Department of Labor first began reporting the data back in 2010. The new CPI and PPI numbers have renewed fears about hyperinflation to the point that even CNN, Bloomberg, and NBC, among others, are warning its viewers that costs are about to skyrocket. And that is when you know things are about to get bad. Those fears of inflation caused a huge sell-off in stocks this week, which were in a crack-up boom bubble anyway, and now the stock market is tumbling. For those that don't know, the TLDR definition of a crack-up boom is simple. The government and central banks see a recession coming, they decide to print more money, expand the money supply, and hand out credit all willy-nilly to try and sustain or create a boom. It works in the short term, but ultimately leads to hyperinflation, a collapse of the monetary system, and recession or depression. See, for example, Russia and Venezuela. All excellent places to visit. So what does this inflation look like in real numbers? Axios put out a report in March, which doesn't even account for the extra jump in core prices we saw in April. In March, laundry equipment prices were up 29%, appliances in general were up 19%, car and truck rentals were up 24%, kerosene, propane, and firewood is up 15%, and pork chops and groceries in general were up 11%. We also, of course, have seen huge increases in commodities like copper, lumber, steel.
Remain calm! All is well! All is well!
But maybe those numbers don't really concern you that much or don't mean much to you. How about things like the price of corn, which is used in practically everything in one form or another? Corn prices have gone up 142% in the last year. 50% of that hike is just since January. We're talking 5 months. The prices are in part due to rising demand in China and a drought in Brazil, but also due to inflation. Now, a funny thing happens when prices get to the point that the average person is spending 40% of their monthly budget on food. Historically, that has been the flashpoint for insurrection or revolution. It fueled the revolutions in France and Egypt and has led to political unrest in several other countries. Currently, those at the lowest income bracket are already hitting that 40% mark. But you know what? All of that still beats a president that makes mean tweets. All of this, of course, while Biden is talking about raising taxes to pay for his trillions and trillions and trillions and whatever new plan, acronym he's calling things now. There's a few of them. They're piling up. Vote blue no matter who. And finally, the third or fourth, or I guess fifth, big powder keg event of the week, because no apocalypse bingo card would be complete without it, new war in the Middle East.
Hot diggity dog!
Israeli and Palestinian forces exchanged rocket fire on Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday. This, in and of itself, isn't all that unusual, except that this time around, Gaza fired over 400 missiles at Israel. Many of the rockets fell short or were intercepted by Israeli defenses, but Israel's return fire killed over 24 people, including 9 children, in a residential area. Meanwhile, Israel claims that the original rocket volley from Gaza hit a major energy pipeline, though its operations weren't affected. Again, in and of itself, not the most unusual thing. But the recent escalation comes amid rising internal tensions as protesters have been clashing in Jerusalem after Israel put capacity limits on prayers and began evictions of Palestinian families in a Jewish neighborhood. The rocket fire then led to more riots that are even spilling over into U.S. cities. Wednesday night, internal riots in Israel between Jewish and Arab citizens took an even darker turn as they descended into flat-out lynchings, a level of violence not seen in the country for over 20 years. Israel is now under curfew and in a state of emergency. Meanwhile, Israel's prime minister vowed to hit Palestinian militants more and harder than ever before, and indeed, he did, with strikes on 650 targets, including government buildings and central banks. The Israel Defense Forces has also called up thousands of soldiers and is preparing military equipment, including tanks, for a ground offensive. So now you see why this is kind of becoming a really big deal. On Wednesday, the Hamas in Gaza requested a ceasefire, but on Thursday, Israel rejected that call, called up another 4,000 reservists, and deployed troops to the border to prepare to invade the Strip. In the 24 hours since I recorded this video, Israel has in fact sent in ground troops, though different outlets have conflicting reports and are stopping short of calling it an invasion. Israel also carried out an airstrike on an international media building in Gaza that housed several news outlets, including Al Jazeera and the Associated Press. The IDF released a statement that the building was actually a military target and that Hamas was using journalists as human shields. This has been the heaviest offensive between Israel and Palestine since 2014. The US and UK have condemned the actions on both sides and called for peace, while Russia and Turkey called for the UN to intervene in order to teach Israel a, quote, strong and deterrent lesson. The UN Security Council did indeed call more than one emergency meeting to discuss the crisis and are raising concerns that it will escalate into a full-on war. However, opposition from the US has stopped the Council from being able to agree on a joint statement or resolution. Nonetheless, the Pentagon has begun evacuating 120 personnel from Tel Aviv amid the rising tensions. Part of that choice was also due to several international airlines canceling all commercial flights to Tel Aviv, including United, Delta, and American Airlines. Oh, yeah, and by the way, sensors are detecting increased levels in a sealed-off chamber of Chernobyl, indicating that new nuclear fission reactions are taking place in the ruins. Officials say it's not a cause for alarm, but is a cause for concern that may require intervention to prevent another nuclear disaster. So that's just a fun little aside that's the icing on the cake. So that is the shit show that is current events. I know there's going to be those handful of folks in the comments saying this video is nothing but fear-mongering, but it's pretty hard to fear-monger when it's just the basic facts of real-world current events. Bottom line, if you haven't prepped you and your family to either bug out or bug in, now would probably be a good time, not just because of consumer panics and possible war, I guess, but even just to help hedge yourself against inflation. And with that, please like, share, or subscribe if you're new here, drop a comment down below, and as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one.